What's up everyone, Ben Morawski here with another episode of our Explain series. Today I'm here to ask one simple question, and that is, do you know how much of your brand new BMW is actually made by BMW? The same question can be asked for Volkswagen, Mercedes, or any other major car manufacturer on the market right now. Now, while the precise number or percentage is pretty much impossible to define, you can safely assume that it's less than you might imagine. There are over 30,000 individual parts from around 4,000 different companies on a modern car. So as of now, the beginning of 2021, what you might think of as a BMW or Volkswagen is actually the culmination of thousands of manufacturer efforts coming together to make a single vehicle. Now in this video, we're going to go over how the tier structure works within the automotive industry. We're going to familiarize you with the companies actually responsible for the parts in your car, and we're going to discuss the differences between what genuine, OE, OEM, and aftermarket actually means. But first, let's take a step back and talk about how we even got to this point. So to understand who makes your car, you must understand the automotive supply chain. When vehicle production in the modern sense began with the Ford Model A, the process of building a car was much different. So back then, nearly every part and component was produced by the car manufacturer themselves, as the car was just really a simpler machine. As cars became increasingly complex, automotive manufacturers began creating independent teams to engineer and manufacture systems as a whole. So over time, these systems became more and more complex themselves, requiring immense amounts of resources to be spent on research and development. When this happens, it makes more sense to outsource this research and development and manufacturing to companies that specialize in them. So this is essentially where the automotive manufacturing supply chain really began. Now, the automotive supply chain is simpler than it might appear on the surface, and it can be broken down really into four main tiers. At the top of the supply chain, you have the automotive manufacturer. This is Audi, BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, and so forth. Now, underneath them, you start with a Tier 0.5 supplier. Tier 0.5 are suppliers that work directly alongside the auto manufacturer to research, design, and engineer application-specific components and systems. This relationship between outside suppliers and manufacturers is actually a relatively new development as cars become heavily dependent on electronic systems. You see this becoming more and more apparent in the development of the EV industry. Now, continuing down the supply chain, we find ourselves at Tier 1 suppliers. So these suppliers have incredibly tight relationships with auto manufacturers, supplying them with systems such as engines, transmissions, suspension, brakes, HVAC, and a bunch of other major systems of the modern automobile. It's most common to have a team of engineers from the actual make of the car working closely with the Tier 1 supplier engineers to ensure testing and quality is all met. Some of the most well-known Tier 1 suppliers you might have heard of and sold on our site here at FCP Euro are ZF, Bosch, BorgWarner, Aisin, and Freudenberg. One of the slightly more confusing concepts of this tiered supply chain structure is that automotive manufacturers can be Tier 1 suppliers themselves, but to other manufacturers. So take Chrysler and BMW in the early 2000s as a good example. Rather than developing their own engine for the first generation Mini Cooper under BMW ownership, Chrysler and Rover, again then owned by BMW at the time, jointly developed the TriTech engine that could be used in cars across both brands. Now by doing this, it decreased the cost of research, development, and manufacturing greatly. While this doesn't always happen, it's not uncommon for Tier 1 suppliers to be born of an auto manufacturer's own engineering division splitting off from the main company. Instead of developing a component or system just for use in their own vehicles, it makes more sense financially to develop and sell this technology to other manufacturers as well. Out of all the companies, Mercedes is probably the most well known for this. So from Tier 1, we're going to move down to Tier 2 suppliers. And this is where we begin to get into the parts you might not typically think much about when thinking of a car. Tier 2 suppliers don't typically deal directly with auto manufacturers. Instead, they deal directly and support the Tier 1 suppliers. The parts that the Tier 2 suppliers supply to the Tier 1 suppliers are the parts that the Tier 1 suppliers use to make the systems of a car that most people understand or interact with as a whole. For example, Bosch might make and sell the HVAC system to BMW, but Bosch doesn't make every single component of that entire system, albeit they could make the majority. But in this scenario, Bosch may buy their blower motors from a Tier 2 supplier and some other smaller supporting parts to then assemble it into its own full Bosch system. Now, parts you interact with on a daily basis that are supplied by Tier 2 suppliers are components such as HVAC system controls, window and wiper electric motors, and latches that secure your doors and door handles, and so on. This list can vary drastically from car to car and company to company, but you get the idea. So the last in the line are Tier 3 suppliers. Tier 3 suppliers make and supply the most basic of componentry and sometimes materials to the higher tiers, as well as occasionally directly to the automotive manufacturers themselves. So this could be from the most simple and small of screws used to hold together the electric motor that drives your power windows, to something like the wiring or sheet metal that makes up the body and panels of your car. Now, Tier 1 and Tier 2 is where you find the majority of the parts on FCP Euro's website. So let's use TRW as an example. TRW is one of, if not the largest manufacturer of braking components in the world, and one of the largest suppliers to automotive manufacturers in general. So over 170 models across 30 manufacturers worldwide ship with TRW braking components on their cars. Now, sometimes it is as clear as it seems, where your caliper may be stamped with TRW logo, or you'll see a TRW sticker on your brake pad wear sensor. But that being said, they sometimes may not say TRW anywhere on them at all. Instead, they could be branded as Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and so on. And this is where OE, OEM, and genuine parts come in. So the parts you find on our site fall within 4 main categories, and that is genuine, OE, OEM, and aftermarket. You might have seen these tags on the product pages while browsing without knowing what they actually mean. Well, starting with genuine, these parts are branded by the vehicle manufacturer, even though they almost always come from a Tier 1 or Tier 2 supplier. Genuine parts are the most expensive as they're sold through dealerships with higher overhead and a higher cost structure associated with them. It may come as a surprise, but there's a good chance that when you open a box labeled genuine, that the part inside is stamped with a Tier 1 or Tier 2 logo on the part itself, with nothing tying it back to the manufacturer outside of the box that it actually came in. So this comes up all the time with our customer service, but hopefully this kind of helps you understand why that may be the case. Now, after genuine, you have OE. OE stands for original equipment. OE parts are the parts supplied to automakers and dealerships. Now, because of licensing agreements, they're allowed to sell these parts through other channels other than the dealer networks. So let's use BMW and TRW as an example once again. The first time you go to replace your brake pads, you might notice that on the back of the pad, it's stamped with a genuine BMW logo. Now, if you ordered the OE replacement made by TRW, it will look exactly the same as the genuine BMW pad. And this is because they are literally exactly the same part. If you look closely, the genuine logo and part number might have actually been on the part, with it simply ground off, or sometimes the OEs will just remove the stamping or marking operation of the automaker's badge or logo from the production process when they go to output these parts for the aftermarket. Now, next is OEM, and this one can be a little more confusing than the rest of the categories. OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. When a product is labeled as OEM on our site, that means that it's supplied by a company that provides at least one OE part to that auto manufacturer. This means that these OEM parts might not have been on the car from the factory, however, they're held to the same high quality standards and go through stringent quality control. So this leaves us with the last category, and that is aftermarket. Aftermarket parts are typically engineered and manufactured by third-party companies with zero affiliation to the auto supplier or the automotive supply chain. So aftermarket parts aren't really held to any quality standards and do not have to abide by the auto manufacturer's testing requirements. Now, here at FCP Euro, I will say that a part of our cataloging process is to vet the aftermarket companies and specific products before adding them to our catalog of available products. Now, just like with OE and OEM parts, if we wouldn't put it on our own cars, we would not sell it to you. Now, you're probably wondering by this point, so who actually makes the car? Well, after all of these parts and systems are engineered and manufactured by the suppliers across all the tiers, they eventually make their way back to the manufacturer of your car, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and so on. And from there, they're distributed to the various assembly plants each manufacturer has throughout the world. And by all over the world, we mean literally all over the world. Your brand new BMW you have sitting in your driveway, there's a good chance it was assembled in Brazil, Mexico, or even right in your backyard in South Carolina, with parts from thousands of manufacturers. Like the rest of the economy, car production has become truly globalized. So that about sums it up. Hopefully you have a nice little recap of kind of how the automotive supply chain works. If you have any questions about any of the things we went over today, feel free to drop that question in the comment box below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button, share it with your friends, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Ben Morawski here again with FCP Euro. I will see you on the next one, and thank you for watching.